Amara's small village lay nestled in a fertile valley surrounded by rolling hills and thick forests. It was a place where traditions ran deep, and the daily rhythm of life moved to the steady beat of farming and simple trades. The villagers lived close to the earth, their hands hardened by toil and their eyes cautious of anything that disrupted their routine. Among them, Amara stood apart, not for any physical difference, but for the restless spirit that stirred within her heart. From a young age, Amara found solace in words. While others sang songs or told stories aloud, she poured her thoughts into letters, delicate sheets of paper inked with dreams, hopes, and the unvarnished truths she observed around her. She wrote of the world beyond the hills, of stars that whispered secrets in the night, and of the yearning she felt to understand life's deeper meaning. But the villagers paid little attention. To them, Amara's letters were frivolous, mere scribbles of a dreamer who should be tending fields, fetching water, or minding the hearth. They viewed her writing as useless, even dangerous, a distraction from the practical work that kept their community alive. "Words won't feed you," they would say, shaking their heads. "Dreams won't bring rain." Despite their dismissive attitudes, Amara continued to write in secret, carefully folding each letter and hiding them beneath loose floorboards in her small cottage. Her fingers stained with ink and her heart heavy with loneliness, she filled pages with stories of kindness, injustice, and hope, a silent rebellion against the narrow expectations imposed upon her. Amara's closest companion was an old wooden desk passed down from her mother, its surface worn smooth by years of use. She often sat there late into the night, the flickering candlelight casting shadows as her pen danced across the pages. Each letter was a conversation with herself and the unseen world beyond the village. Her words revealed a soul-seeking connection, a voice longing to be heard. She wrote about the laughter of children playing by the river, the cruelty of jealousy that divided neighbors, and the quiet strength of those who endured hardship without complaint. She questioned the harshness of tradition and imagined a future where understanding and compassion ruled. Yet, no matter how deeply she wrote, the village remained indifferent or hostile. Amara's writings were mocked in the marketplace, whispered about behind cupped hands and dismissed as foolishness. Some elders warned that her words could stir unrest, that dreaming too much could invite misfortune. Amara bore these judgments silently, but the sting of isolation cut deep. She longed for a friend, someone who would read her letters and see the truth they carried. She dreamed of a day when her words would bloom beyond the walls of her cottage and touch hearts far and wide. One afternoon, while gathering water at the well, Amara overheard a group of women gossiping. "That girl's letters are nonsense," one said sharply. "Better if she kept her thoughts to herself." Another added, "She's wasting her time, no one cares for dreams in this village." The words echoed in Amara's mind as she walked home, the sun beating down and casting long shadows over the dusty road. She clutched her satchel tightly, the hidden letters a fragile treasure she guarded fiercely. Inside her cottage, she sat by the window watching the world move on without her. Yet, beneath the weight of rejection, a spark of defiance flickered. Amara knew her words held power, even if the village could not see it yet. In the quiet moments before sleep, she whispered to the night sky, "One day my voice will grow beyond this place and the world will know my name." Her letters were not just ink on paper, they were the seeds of change, quietly waiting for the right moment to take root. The growing unrest in the village had begun to stir like a dark wind, swirling with whispers of anger and suspicion. Amara's letters, once dismissed as harmless musings, had started to unsettle some of the villagers more than they expected. Her words, so vivid, so honest, had begun to challenge the comfortable certainties that held the community together, exposing fears and unspoken truths that many preferred to ignore. A small group of villagers, led by a stern-faced farmer named Quito, gathered one evening in the shadow of the community's old meeting hall. The flickering firelight cast grim shadows on their faces as they spoke in hushed tones, their voices thick with frustration and disdain. "This girl's words spread like weeds," Quito growled, his eyes flashing with anger. "She mocks our ways, questions our traditions. If we let her speak, what will become of us? Our children will be led astray, and the village will fall into chaos." Beside him, an older woman, Mama Lani, nodded grimly. "Her letters are poison. We must stop them before they spread any further." The villagers agreed on a cruel plan, a way to silence Amara and erase the threat her words posed. They would gather all her hidden letters and bury them deep within the manure heap outside the village, hoping that the decay and rot would destroy not only the papers but the spirit behind them. Under the cover of night, a group of men and women crept toward Amara's cottage. The moon was a thin silver crescent, barely lighting their path as they moved quietly, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth. Their hearts were heavy with determination, though some felt a pang of unease at the harshness of their task. At Amara's door, they found the loose floorboard where she had stashed her precious letters. One by one they pulled out the fragile bundles, their edges curling and ink smudged from years of secrecy. The villagers scoffed, tossing the letters roughly into a burlap sack, their disdain palpable. Quito spat on the pile. "These words mean nothing," he sneered. "Let the earth swallow them and let her silence follow." The group made their way to the manure heap, a large mound of earth and waste used to fertilize the village fields. The pungent stench filled the night air, a sharp contrast to the delicate words now to be buried beneath the muck. They dug a shallow pit in the heap and threw the letters into the foul soil, shoveling manure over them with grim satisfaction. As the letters disappeared beneath the thick, dark layer, a chill seemed to settle over the group, as if the earth itself recoiled at their act of cruelty. Meanwhile, unaware of the betrayal, Amara sat in her cottage working late into the night on a new letter. The flickering candlelight danced across her determined face as she poured her heart into words that spoke of hope and healing. The next morning she awoke to the first rays of sunlight filtering through her window. When she went to retrieve her hidden letters, she was met with an empty space and a sinking feeling in her chest. Panic rose as she realized her precious writings were gone. Word quickly spread throughout the village of what had been done. Some villagers whispered with satisfaction, believing the problem had been solved. Others, however, felt a strange unease, as if something sacred had been disturbed. Amara's grief was profound. Her voice, once carried only on paper, had been violently buried, seemingly silenced. Yet, beneath her sorrow burned a quiet fury, not of revenge, but of a deeper determination to be heard. She wandered to the fields near the manure heap, standing at the edge where the earth was rich and dark. The pungent smell was overwhelming, but her gaze lingered on the soil beneath her feet. It was a symbol of both decay and potential, of endings and new beginnings. That day Amara made a silent vow. Though her words had been buried in filth, they would not be forgotten. The spirit that had breathed life into her letters was stronger than any act of malice. Back in the village, unease began to spread like wildfire. Some villagers claimed to see strange glimmers near the manure heap, faint lights that danced among the shadows. Others spoke of a soft breeze carrying the faintest whisper of words, as if the earth itself was trying to speak. Quito and his followers dismissed these tales as superstition, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The letters, though buried, had taken root in ways no one could have imagined. Amara returned home that evening, her heart heavy but unbroken. She knew that the true power of her words was not in the paper but in the spirit they carried. And somewhere beneath the soil, her voice was waiting to grow again. Beneath the thick, pungent mound of manure that had swallowed Amara's letters, something extraordinary began to stir. The villagers, convinced that the letters were lost forever, paid little mind to the slowly shifting earth where the papers lay buried. Yet beneath the surface, the magic of Amara's words and spirit was awakening the soil in a way no one had ever seen before. The manure, rich with the life-giving nutrients of the earth, worked its ancient alchemy on the hidden letters. Instead of rotting into oblivion, the ink and paper seemed to merge with the fertile soil, infusing it with a strange energy that whispered of renewal and hope. The scent of decay mingled with the fresh promise of growth, creating an unusual harmony between death and life. Within days, tiny green shoots broke through the earth's surface, fragile yet vibrant, catching the first rays of the morning sun. At first, the villagers noticed these sprouts with curiosity but soon dismissed them as mere weeds or careless remnants of farming. But the shoots grew quickly, reaching upward with a determined strength that seemed almost unnatural. As the shoots spread, they began to weave together, their stems and leaves bending and curling in deliberate patterns. Some villagers who passed by the manure heap began to sense something unusual, a faint shimmer, a subtle glow around the emerging plants that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. One morning, as the village awoke to the crisp light of dawn, the people gathered at the edge of the fields, eyes wide with wonder. Before them lay a garden unlike any they had ever seen, lush, vibrant, and alive with colors that defied description. But more remarkable than the flowers and greenery was the unmistakable shape the plants had formed. The name Amara, spelled out in elegant, intertwining letters that stretched across the soil like a living signature. The garden pulsed with life, each bloom and leaf seeming to hum with the essence of Amara's spirit. The flowers were delicate yet resilient, their petals shimmering with hues that shifted in the sunlight, deep purples, fiery oranges, and soft blues that seemed to reflect the emotions in her letters. The vines curled around each other in graceful loops, as if writing new stories in the language of growth. Villagers who had come to witness the miracle stood in stunned silence. Some whispered prayers of thanks, others crossed themselves, unsure whether to fear or revere what they saw. The garden was both beautiful and mysterious, a sign that the earth itself had accepted Amara's words and transformed them into something eternal. Quito, the farmer who had led the effort to bury the letters, stared at the garden with a mixture of disbelief and dread. "This can't be," he muttered, his voice trembling. "How can her cursed words bloom in the very soil we thought would bury them?" Mama Lani, once a harsh critic, now gazed upon the garden with tears in her eyes. "Perhaps we were wrong," she whispered. "Maybe her words were not poison but seeds." News of the miraculous garden spread quickly beyond the village. Travelers from nearby towns and even distant lands came to see the living testament to Amara's spirit. They brought offerings of water and song, honoring the power of growth born from rejection. Amara herself visited the garden in secret at first, her heart swelling with a mixture of awe and gratitude. She knelt by the lush plants, feeling the soft earth beneath her fingers and breathing in the sweet fragrance of the blooms. To her, the garden was not just a miracle, it was a promise that her voice would live on, no matter the hardships she had faced. She began to tend the garden carefully, watering the plants with gentle hands and speaking softly to them as if they were old friends. Each day the garden grew stronger and more vibrant, drawing life from the soil and the stories buried within it. The villagers' feelings continued to evolve. Some remained wary, fearing that the garden was a curse or a sign of some dark magic. Others embraced it as a blessing, a symbol of hope and transformation. The garden became a place of gathering, reflection, and healing, where disputes were settled and friendships renewed. Children played among the flowers, their laughter ringing like music, while elders sat nearby sharing stories and wisdom. The garden's presence began to soften hardened hearts and open minds long closed to change. As seasons passed, the garden flourished through droughts and storms, a living reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of words. The name, Amara, stood tall and proud in the center of the village, not just spelled out in plants, but etched into the hearts of all who witnessed its magic. The soil that had once seemed so foul and unforgiving had become a cradle for new life, a testament to the belief that even in the darkest places, hope can take root and bloom. The once quiet patch of earth near the manure heap had transformed into a spectacle that caught the attention of everyone in the village and beyond. The garden that bloomed there was unlike any other, a vibrant tapestry of color and life that grew in the unmistakable shape of Amara's name. Each letter, crafted by twisting vines, blooming flowers, and lush greenery, seemed to pulse with an energy that whispered of hope, resilience, and a spirit unbroken. News of the garden's miraculous growth spread rapidly through the village, carried by excited whispers and eager footsteps. People who had long ignored or scorned Amara now found themselves drawn to the garden, their curiosity overcoming fear and skepticism. They came in small groups, then in larger crowds, all hoping to witness the miracle with their own eyes. The garden's first visitors were hesitant, unsure whether what they were seeing was a blessing or a curse. Some approached quietly, dipping their hands into the rich soil, marveling at the delicate petals and the intricate patterns formed by the plants. The flowers bloomed in dazzling colors, deep purples, fiery reds, and soft yellows, their fragrances mingling in the air like a symphony of scents. Children were the first to embrace the garden fully. They ran among the flowers, their laughter ringing like bells as they chased butterflies and played hide-and-seek among the towering sunflowers and blooming roses. Their innocent joy was contagious, breaking down the walls of suspicion that had long surrounded the area. Elders and village leaders, who had once been staunch critics of Amara, found themselves drawn into the garden's peaceful embrace. Some sat quietly by the edge, contemplating the transformation not only of the earth but of their own hearts. The garden became a place of gathering, where stories were shared and old grievances softened by the gentle presence of nature's wonder. Visitors from neighboring villages arrived, intrigued by the tales of the garden that bore a woman's name so boldly and beautifully. Traders, travelers, and wandering storytellers came to see the spectacle and carried its story far and wide, adding their own awe and reverence to the growing legend. Amara, watching from a distance at first, was both humbled and amazed by the response. She began to visit the garden openly, tending to the plants with care and speaking softly to the flowers as if they were dear friends. Her hands, once rough from toil, now moved with a gentle grace that nurtured the earth and the life it bore. As the garden blossomed, so too did the sense of renewal within the village. Where once there had been suspicion and fear, now there was hope and unity. The garden became a symbol of the power of words and spirit to transcend hardship and hatred. One day, during a festival celebrating the harvest, the villagers gathered around the garden to honor its beauty and the story behind it. Songs were sung, dances performed, and stories told of Amara's courage and the miracle that had taken root in their midst. The garden's blossoms seemed to respond to the celebration, their colors intensifying as if joining in the joyful chorus. Lanterns were hung among the branches, casting a warm glow that made the garden sparkle like a jewel under the night sky. In time, the garden's fame grew beyond the village and surrounding lands. Scholars and healers came to study its unique growth, seeking to understand the mysterious energy that seemed to flow from the soil and plants. Some believed it held magical properties that could heal not just the body but the soul. Through it all, Amara remained a humble steward, her heart full of gratitude for the garden that had grown from the words others had tried to bury. She knew that the garden was more than just a miracle of nature. It was a living testament to the power of perseverance, hope, and the courage to speak one's truth. As seasons passed, the garden continued to flourish, a perpetual reminder to the villagers and visitors alike that from the darkest moments, life and beauty could emerge. The name Amara stood tall and proud, etched not only in flowers and vines but in the hearts of all who witnessed its bloom. The miraculous garden that blossomed in the village, spelling out Amara's name in vibrant colors and living greenery, quickly became a source of awe, but also of deep unease. For many villagers, the extraordinary growth was not a blessing but a troubling sign, a manifestation of forces beyond their understanding and control. As whispers spread like wildfire through the winding lanes and clustered homes, fear began to take root alongside the garden's flourishing plants. Elder women gathered in small circles, voices hushed but urgent, speaking of curses and dark magic. "It's not natural," one said, her eyes wide with worry. "No good can come from such a thing." In the market square, villagers debated heatedly. Some argued that the garden was a divine punishment for their cruelty toward Amara, a reminder that the earth itself would not tolerate injustice. Others saw it as a bad omen, a threat to their safety and traditions. "If we do not act," a stern man declared, "this garden will bring ruin upon us all." The village council convened urgently in the old meeting hall, the air thick with tension. Quito, still resentful and fearful, was among the most vocal. "This garden is unnatural," he insisted. "It mocks us and threatens our way of life. We must destroy it before it spreads further." Mama Lani, though softened by the garden's beauty, was torn. "We cannot deny the power in these plants," she said carefully. "But we must be cautious. We do not know what forces we are dealing with." Among the villagers, a divide grew. Some advocated for raising the garden, for uprooting the miraculous blooms and returning the earth to what they believed was its rightful state. Others urged patience and understanding, wondering if Amara's spirit was indeed stronger and wiser than they had ever imagined. Rumors circulated that strange occurrences were tied to the garden. Some villagers claimed to hear faint whispers on the wind, words that seemed to carry messages of forgiveness and hope. Others spoke of shadows moving among the plants at dusk, fleeting glimpses of shapes that vanished when approached. Children, unburdened by fear, continued to play among the flowers, their laughter a stark contrast to the anxious murmurs of the adults. Their innocence seemed to protect them from the dread that gripped many hearts. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills and cast long shadows over the village, a group of villagers gathered at the garden's edge. Torches flickered, and their faces were set with determination. They brought tools, hoes, axes, and shovels, intent on destroying what they could not understand. But as they raised their implements to strike, a sudden stillness fell over the group. The garden seemed to breathe beneath their feet, the leaves rustling softly in a breeze that carried a soothing melody. A gentle voice, barely more than a whisper, floated through the air, calling for peace and understanding. The villagers hesitated, their hands trembling. Some lowered their tools, caught in the spell of the garden's quiet power. Others looked around nervously, unsure whether to stay or flee. In the days that followed, the tension between fear and wonder simmered. Some villagers sought to learn more about Amara and her letters, hoping to understand the meaning behind the miraculous garden. Others kept their distance, wary of what the future might hold. Amara, aware of the growing unrest, continued to nurture the garden with quiet determination. She invited those willing to listen to share in the garden's peace, offering stories of hope and resilience. Her calm presence helped ease some fears, even as others remained skeptical. The garden became a symbol not only of life's unexpected beauty but also of the struggle between old fears and new possibilities. It challenged the villagers to confront their prejudices and to consider the power of forgiveness and growth. As the seasons turned, the garden stood resilient, a living testament to the strength of the human spirit and the enduring power of words and hope. Though fear lingered in some hearts, the garden's light continued to shine, inviting all who saw it to embrace change and renewal. Amara stood quietly at the edge of the garden, her gaze steady and calm as the murmur of fearful whispers rose from the village. The murmurs of suspicion, the harsh words that branded her writings as curses, and the calls for destruction all swirled around her like an unsettling storm. Yet, amid the tension, Amara's heart remained anchored by a quiet strength forged through years of hardship and rejection. She had long learned that anger and despair would do little to change the minds of those who feared what they could not understand. Instead, she chose a path of patience and resilience, tending to the garden with care and reverence as a symbol of the truth she carried within her words. Each morning before the first light of dawn, Amara would rise and make her way to the garden. The air was cool and still, the world hushed in anticipation of a new day. She knelt by the soil, her fingers gently brushing the leaves and petals that had grown from the very letters meant to silence her. To her, each bloom was a living testament to the power of hope and the enduring nature of her voice. Despite the growing fear among some villagers, others began to approach her cautiously, drawn by the garden's undeniable beauty and the peace that seemed to radiate from Amara's presence. She welcomed them without judgment, sharing stories of her journey and the meaning behind the garden's miraculous growth. When confronted by those who doubted or scorned her, Amara responded not with bitterness but with quiet dignity. She listened to their fears and doubts, acknowledging their pain while gently offering a different perspective. "This garden is not a curse," she would say softly. "It is a reminder that even in the darkest places, life can grow and flourish." Amara's calm resolve inspired some villagers to reconsider their fears. They began to see the garden not as a threat, but as a symbol of something greater, the resilience of the human spirit and the power of truth to take root and thrive. Among those who came to the garden was a young girl named Lila, whose bright eyes reflected the same curiosity and courage that Amara had carried since childhood. Lila had watched the garden grow from a distance, her heart swelling with wonder and hope. She sought Amara's guidance, eager to learn how to nurture not just plants, but also kindness and understanding. Together they tended the garden, planting new seeds and nurturing the soil. Amara taught Lila that growth required patience and care, both in the earth and in the hearts of people. "We cannot force change," she explained. "But with love and persistence, even the smallest seed can become a mighty tree." As the seasons passed, the garden flourished under their care. Its vibrant colors and sweet fragrances became a beacon of hope for the village, drawing visitors from near and far. The garden's beauty softened hardened hearts and sparked conversations that had long been avoided. Amara's quiet strength was also a balm for her own spirit. In the face of rejection and fear, she found solace in the garden's growth and in the small acts of kindness that blossomed among the villagers. Her voice, once buried and silenced, now echoed in the rustling leaves and blooming flowers. Though challenges remained, Amara faced them with unwavering faith in the power of patience, compassion, and resilience. She knew that true change was a slow and steady process, one that required both courage and humility. Her journey was not just about a garden or a name spelled in flowers, it was about the transformation of a community and the healing of wounds caused by fear and misunderstanding. Amara's strength lay not in loud proclamations but in the quiet persistence of nurturing life and hope in the face of adversity. Through her calm presence and tireless care, Amara became a living example of the very message her letters had sought to convey, that even when silenced, the human spirit can find ways to grow, heal, and inspire. And so, amid the whispered fears and tentative hopes, the garden and its guardian stood as enduring symbols of the power of quiet strength and the unyielding courage to let one's voice bloom. The village's peaceful rhythm was disrupted one late morning by the arrival of a rider whose dust-covered horse stamped impatiently outside the main square. The messenger, clad in a worn cloak bearing the seal of the nearby kingdom of Eldra, carried news that would ripple far beyond the small village's borders. Word of the miraculous garden spelling out Amara's name had traveled swiftly, stirring curiosity and intrigue in the grand halls of the kingdom. As the villagers gathered, whispering and peering through windows and doorways, the messenger dismounted and strode purposefully toward the village center. His eyes, sharp and keen from years of travel, scanned the crowd until they settled on Amara, tending quietly to her beloved garden. The messenger cleared his throat and spoke with a voice both commanding and respectful. "I come from King Eldrin's court, where tales of your garden and your courage have reached us." His Majesty wishes to hear your story, to know the woman whose words and spirit have transformed the very earth. A hush fell over the crowd as Amara's name echoed in the messenger's proclamation. Some villagers exchanged glances, unsure whether to rejoice or fear what this summons might bring. For Amara, the invitation was both an honor and a daunting call to leave the safety of her village and share her voice with a wider world. The messenger continued, "The king values wisdom and justice and believes your voice can inspire hope throughout the kingdom. He requests you come to the royal court to speak and share your writings." Amara's heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The thought of standing before the king and his nobles filled her with both pride and uncertainty. She glanced around at the villagers, some watching with admiration, others with suspicion, but she knew this was a chance to rise beyond the shadows of rejection. That evening, under a sky brushed with stars, Amara packed a small bundle of her few possessions and a collection of her letters, carefully preserved and cherished. The garden, now glowing softly in the moonlight, seemed to offer its silent blessing as she prepared for the journey ahead. The next morning, accompanied by the messenger and a small escort, Amara set out on the road to Eldora. The journey was long and filled with new sights, rolling hills, bustling market towns and dense forests. With every step away from her village, she felt the weight of expectation but also a growing sense of purpose. Upon arriving at the kingdom's towering gates, Amara was awed by the grandeur of the royal palace, the gleaming spires, intricate stonework and the hum of life within. The courtiers and nobles regarded her with curiosity, whispering among themselves about the young woman who had tamed the earth with her words. Amara was led into the grand hall, where King Eldrin sat upon his throne, a man whose wise eyes reflected a depth of understanding and compassion. The room was filled with courtiers, scholars and advisors, all eager to witness the woman behind the legend. The king greeted Amara warmly, inviting her to share her story and read from her letters. Her voice, steady and clear, carried through the hall as she spoke of her struggles, her hopes, and the miraculous garden that had grown from words once buried in manure. The courtiers listened intently, some nodding in approval, others moved to tears by the honesty and courage in her words. When she finished, the king rose and declared that Amara's story would be honored throughout the kingdom as a beacon of hope and resilience. Amara was offered a place at the royal court as a storyteller and advisor, a role that would allow her to share her message far and wide. She accepted with humility, knowing that her journey was only just beginning. As she settled into her new life, Amara continued to nurture the garden back in her village through letters and messages, ensuring that her roots remained firmly planted in the soil that had first given her voice life. The messenger's visit had opened a door to a future filled with possibility, and Amara stepped through it with quiet strength, ready to inspire a kingdom and beyond. The garden, once a simple patch of earth defying expectations, had blossomed into a powerful symbol of resilience, hope, and the enduring strength of truth. Amara's journey from a quiet village girl to a recognized storyteller and advisor at the royal court was a testament to the transformative power of words and courage. But her legacy extended far beyond the palace halls. It spread like wildfire through the hearts and minds of people near and far. As her letters gained fame, they were copied, shared, and cherished by many who found solace and inspiration in her words. The once dismissed writings that had been buried in manure now flourished like the garden itself, alive, vibrant, and impossible to ignore. Scholars in Eldora and neighboring kingdoms studied her stories, admiring the way they wove together simple truths with profound insight. Amara's message resonated deeply with those who had felt silenced or powerless. Her letters spoke of kindness in the face of cruelty, patience amid adversity, and the quiet strength found in standing firm against injustice. They encouraged readers to nurture their own voices, no matter how small or unheard they might seem. The garden back in her village remained a sacred place, tended lovingly by villagers who had once doubted but now embraced its significance. It became a gathering spot for festivals, celebrations, and moments of reflection. People came to lay flowers, share stories, and find peace among the blooms that bore Amara's name. The villagers who had once feared and rejected Amara now stood proudly by the garden, their hearts changed by the miracle it represented. Mothers told their children about the brave young woman who had faced hatred and transformed it into life. Elders spoke of the power of forgiveness and the importance of listening to even the quietest voices. Amara herself continued to write, her letters evolving into teachings and parables that touched on the universal themes of love, resilience, and hope. Her stories traveled far beyond the kingdom's borders, inspiring other villages and towns to nurture their own gardens, both literal and metaphorical. Artists painted scenes of the garden, capturing its ethereal beauty and the spirit of growth it embodied. Musicians composed melodies that carried the emotions of her journey, and poets wove her words into verses that echoed through the ages. The garden's legacy was not just about the remarkable plants or the letters that had sparked its growth. It was about the people who found courage in Amara's story to face their own challenges with grace and determination. It reminded them that even in the darkest soil, seeds of hope could take root and flourish. Over time, the garden grew to symbolize more than just Amara's name. It became a living monument to resilience, truth, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Visitors from distant lands journeyed to see the miraculous blooms, seeking inspiration and a reminder that change was possible, even against overwhelming odds. The village, once divided by fear and suspicion, found unity in the garden's presence. Old wounds healed, and a new generation grew up with stories of bravery and kindness as their foundation. The garden's roots intertwined with the hearts of the people, grounding them in the belief that their voices mattered. As Amara looked upon the garden from afar, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her voice, once buried and ignored, had blossomed into something that would endure long after she was gone. The garden was her gift to the world, a testament that no matter how deep the darkness, light and life could always find a way. And so, the garden stood, a beacon of hope and a living legacy, reminding all who saw it that every voice has power, every story has meaning, and from even the humblest beginnings, greatness can grow. The remarkable transformation of the garden and the growing fame of Amara's letters slowly began to soften the hearts of many villagers who had once been harsh and unkind. As the seasons passed and the garden's beauty continued to inspire, a quiet change rippled through the village, a change that stirred feelings of regret, humility, and a deep yearning for reconciliation. It began with small gestures. A neighbor who had once whispered cruel words now offered a gentle smile and a helping hand. A mother who had shunned Amara's presence invited her children to visit the garden and learn the stories that had once been silenced. These acts, seemingly simple, were the first threads in a delicate tapestry of healing that was beginning to weave itself throughout the community. One by one, villagers came forward to seek Amara's forgiveness. They approached her with bowed heads and open hearts, bearing gifts of flowers, hand-woven cloth, and freshly baked bread, humble offerings that spoke louder than words. They wished to make amends for the pain they had caused and to embrace the kindness and wisdom Amara embodied. Amara welcomed them without hesitation. Her quiet strength and compassionate spirit allowed her to see beyond their past actions to the genuine remorse they now carried. She believed that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness but a powerful act of courage that could restore broken bonds and nurture new growth. In gatherings held beneath the shade of the garden's blossoming trees, Amara shared lessons drawn from her journey. She spoke of the importance of kindness, not just in grand gestures but in everyday moments. She taught that growth, whether in gardens or hearts, required patience, care, and a willingness to face discomfort and change. Her words resonated deeply with those who listened. They learned that true strength came from acknowledging mistakes and choosing to move forward with empathy and understanding. The garden itself became a living classroom, its vibrant blooms a testament to the possibilities born from forgiveness. Villagers who had once been distant and cold now worked side by side with Amara, tending the plants and sharing stories with children gathered around. The shared labor and companionship fostered a renewed sense of community and belonging. Old rivalries and grudges began to dissolve as people embraced the healing power of reconciliation. Celebrations marked milestones in the garden's growth, symbolizing the blossoming of new relationships and renewed hope. Amara's teachings extended beyond words. She modeled forgiveness in her actions, offering kindness to those who had hurt her and encouraging others to do the same. Her example inspired a cultural shift within the village, moving away from suspicion and fear toward openness and trust. The garden's legacy grew not only as a miracle of nature but as a beacon of human connection and transformation. Visitors who came to see its beauty often stayed to witness the warmth and unity that now define the community. Through reconciliation, the village found a deeper understanding of itself and its potential. The wounds of the past were not forgotten but honored as part of a journey toward growth and healing. Amara's message echoed in the hearts of all, that every voice matters, every story deserves to be heard, and even the most broken places can be made whole through forgiveness and love. As the sun set over the flourishing garden, its colors glowing softly in the twilight, the village stood united, rooted in kindness, nourished by truth and blossoming in the enduring light of reconciliation. In the heart of the village, where once suspicion and fear had ruled, a new chapter was unfolding, one filled with hope, growth and the celebration of knowledge. Amara, whose quiet strength and courage had transformed not only the earth but the hearts of her people, embarked on a vision that would nurture the village's future: the creation of a community library and an expanded garden, spaces dedicated to learning, expression, and connection. The idea had taken root during one of the gatherings beneath the blossoming garden. Villagers, inspired by the stories and lessons Amara shared, expressed a yearning for a place where knowledge could flourish and voices, especially those once silenced, could be heard. Amara welcomed the idea with enthusiasm, seeing it as a natural extension of the garden's legacy. With the support of the village council and the growing community of believers, work began to transform an old and used building near the village center into a welcoming library. Walls were cleaned and painted, shelves built from sturdy local wood, and the space filled with books collected from neighboring villages and distant towns. The library was designed not only as a repository of knowledge but as a gathering place where people could come together to learn, share stories, and grow. Alongside the library, the garden was expanded into a vibrant sanctuary, where flowers and plants flourished in carefully tended beds. The new garden paths wound through fragrant herbs, colorful blooms, and towering trees, creating a peaceful retreat for contemplation and inspiration. At its center, the original miraculous garden remained, its flowers spelling out Amara's name in living tribute. Children and elders alike found joy in the garden's embrace. Schools brought students to explore the plants and listen to stories under the shade of flowering branches. Artists and poets found muse among the blooms, their works reflecting the beauty and resilience that the garden embodied. Amara herself took on the role of librarian and gardener, her days filled with the quiet joy of tending both books and blossoms. She welcomed visitors with a warm smile and a patient heart, encouraging curiosity and creativity in all who entered. The library soon became a hub of activity. Storytelling sessions sparked imaginations, reading circles fostered friendships, and workshops on writing and art empowered villagers to express their own voices. The walls echoed with laughter, learning, and lively debate. Amara's letters, once hidden and ignored, now sat proudly on display, inspiring new generations to believe in the power of their words and the importance of speaking their truths. The garden's blooms, ever vibrant, served as a living reminder that growth was possible even after the harshest trials. The village itself transformed, embracing a culture of learning and compassion. Old fears gave way to a shared commitment to nurture one another's potential and to honor the stories that shaped their lives. Visitors from far and wide came to experience the library and garden, carrying tales of the village's remarkable transformation to distant lands. Amara's story, intertwined with the flourishing garden that bore her name, became a beacon of hope for those seeking courage to overcome adversity. As seasons passed, the garden's blossoms continued to spell Amara's name with unwavering clarity, a testament to her enduring spirit and the legacy she had built. It stood as a symbol not only of her personal journey but of the collective strength and resilience of the community she loved. In the quiet moments of dawn and dusk, when the village was bathed in golden light, Amara would walk through the garden paths, feeling the pulse of life and hope that surrounded her. She knew that the seed she had planted, both literal and metaphorical, would continue to grow, nurturing hearts and minds for generations to come. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit rooted in love, Amara embraced the new beginnings that blossomed from the soil of her past, knowing that her story, like the garden, would forever inspire growth, healing, and the courage to speak one's truth. The village had transformed. Where once there had been whispers of fear and suspicion, now there was laughter, learning, and a sense of shared purpose. At the heart of this transformation stood Amara, no longer the quiet girl whose letters were buried in Manure but a beacon of hope, strength, and wisdom. Determined to nurture the seeds of change that had taken root, Amara envisioned a place where knowledge, stories, and voices of all kinds could flourish. She dreamed of a community library, a sanctuary where the young and old could gather to read, write, and share their stories. This vision was born from her own journey, from the power that a single voice could wield when nurtured and heard. With the support of the villagers, many of whom now saw her as a leader and inspiration, Amara set about establishing the library. The old and used granary was transformed, its dusty shelves cleared and filled with scrolls, manuscripts, and books collected from near and far. Villagers donated their own writings, poems, and stories, eager to contribute to a shared treasure trove of knowledge. Children flocked to the library, their eyes bright with curiosity as they discovered worlds beyond their own village. Elders gathered to recount tales of the past, ensuring that history and tradition lived on alongside new ideas. Amara hosted storytelling sessions and writing workshops, encouraging everyone to find their voice and share their unique perspective. Alongside the library, the garden continued to thrive, its vibrant flowers and lush vines forever spelling Amara's name, a living testament to the power of resilience and hope. The garden was not only a place of beauty but also a space for reflection, where villagers could find peace and inspiration. Amara often wandered through the garden, her hands brushing gently over the petals, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. She knew that the garden's growth mirrored the growth within the community, a flourishing of spirit, knowledge, and connection. The village became known as a place of learning and creativity, attracting visitors, scholars, and travelers eager to witness the miraculous garden and partake in the rich culture Amara had helped cultivate. The library's reputation grew, and soon, it housed works from distant lands, fostering a spirit of openness and understanding. Amara's leadership was marked by humility and kindness. She listened attentively to the hopes and concerns of her fellow villagers, always encouraging collaboration and mutual respect. Her vision was inclusive, a place where every voice mattered and every story had a home. Festivals celebrating literature, art, and nature became regular events, drawing the community closer and honoring the power of expression. Music filled the air as poets recited verses inspired by the garden's beauty, and painters captured its colors on canvas. Through these celebrations, the lessons of forgiveness, resilience, and hope were passed down to younger generations, ensuring that Amara's legacy would endure far into the future. Amara also reached out beyond the village, forming connections with neighboring communities to share knowledge and culture. Exchanges of stories, seeds, and ideas enriched all involved, creating a network of growth and friendship. As the years passed, the garden remained a central symbol of the village's journey. Its blossoms flourished, spelling Amara's name with unyielding clarity, a reminder to all who saw it that even in the face of adversity, life could thrive. Visitors often remarked on the garden's magic, but Amara knew that its true power lay in the people who nurtured it, in the community that had learned to embrace kindness, courage, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. In quiet moments, Amara reflected on the path that had led her here, from the lonely girl whose letters were buried and forgotten to the woman who had sparked a transformation that would live on for generations. Her story, like the garden and the library, was a testament to the belief that every voice deserves to be heard, that hope can grow even in the darkest soil, and that new beginnings are always possible. As the sun set over the flourishing village, casting golden light over the garden and the library's open doors, Amara felt a deep sense of peace. Her legacy was not just in the blooms that spelled her name or the books on the shelves but in the hearts and minds she had touched and the future she had helped to grow. And so, with unwavering hope and quiet strength, Amara's story blossomed into a new chapter, one filled with endless possibilities and the promise of life's enduring beauty.